A wake-up call to parents. If you have kids in school, the nation's report card that just came out is troubling, and the grades are not good for a lot of students here. Joining me now to discuss is Erika Sanzi, the Director of Outreach for Parents Defending Education. I know, Erika, you and I have talked about this, and this issue has you fired up.
Yes,
because
very.
we get bogged down in all the numbers, but what's really happening here is even more devastating beyond just looking at the numbers. When you think of, at least when it comes to reading, something like these are the lowest scores, the nation's report card, I think since what, 1992 or something like that?
They're the lowest scores we've seen since the test was given for the first time. And yes, that was in 1992. So we're talking about after decades, we are doing worse now in reading with 12th graders than we were in the early 90s.
That just sounds unbelievable to me.
It's kind of sounds unbelievable to me too. I mean, certainly I think many of us, and I'm just one of tons of people who've been sounding the alarm about how schools are focused on the wrong things. And they have really moved away from the fundamentals like teaching reading. And so I'm not shocked by the results when I think about it, about what I've seen schools not just spending their time on, but also the philosophies that have made their ways into schools, which have been lowering standards and, telling students that their peer or their teammate is actually their oppressor. And, just making excuses as well as denying reality about how students read. Again, I wish I was more shocked by this, but I hope that it's a wake-up call to people that haven't really been paying attention, that all of this ideology, all of this talk about equity has gotten us to a worse place than where we were before.
And let's talk about that worse place, especially when we talk to some of our kids who were already behind in some urban areas, marginalized students. What do these numbers say about their situation right now?
I mean, this is a devastating thing I'm about to say, but the Black students that were already struggling, right? So we can call them low performing Black students. They were already behind in 1992, the first year the test was administered. They are now 1.5 years behind where they were then.
That is just terrible.
It's unconscionable, but it is where we are. It's not monocausal. I know that people love to find one reason and run with it. It certainly isn't one thing, but I think people need to have a brutally honest conversation about how we got here.
Well, how do we get out? I mean, I think that's we're here now, but how do we get out?
This may seem counterintuitive to some people because they don't think of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama as, like these top states for education. But when it comes to reading instruction and literacy, they are right now. We've seen a real surge in these states because they have really committed to teaching reading in a way that is evidence and science-based, which means a return to phonics. And many of them have also started doing what's called third grade retention, which means if you're not reading proficiently or on grade level by third grade, they are holding students back. And that's because all the evidence tells us that if you are below grade level in third grade, so if you haven't, if you get to third grade and you're still not reading proficiently, that is a huge predictor of how you're going to do in the future.
It's your whole future, whether it depends on whether you graduate from high school, even I think if you're in the jail system, the prison system, it's an indicator of so many different things.
Yes, and if you look at all the data, to your point, like incarceration, if you look at incarcerated people and what their reading level was, the correlation is just so strong.
Right.
So certainly that's one thing to do, is to look at what are the states that are having success. And again, don't look at them just generally. It's really that are really, really knocking it out of the park in literacy, and do what they're doing. And that literally would mean, I think, state commissioners and superintendents in states that are really, really getting bad results need to get connected with the leaders in those states and begin replicating what they're doing. Now, it's not as easy as I'm saying, because unfortunately, like where I live, like unions have really fought a lot of these literacy reforms. So it's not as easy as like just saying we're going to do this, but we've got to do something, because this is just not acceptable.
And you talk about the COVID, of course, the pandemic made it worse. And during the pandemic, students were already struggling. The shutdowns, it was kind of like another layer of pain there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is if anybody says, oh, it's just because of the pandemic, no, it's not. That's a lie. We were already doing worse before the pandemic, and it's really easy to blame that, right? Because that's kind of like a thing that was out of our control. But that's not an excuse. It is one reason, but it is not the reason. We were on a terrible trajectory before the pandemic. And oh, by the way, we're also going to hear people say, well, we don't have enough money. No, we poured so much money into these schools, all of that COVID money that went totally unaccounted for. I believe it was $190 billion. Yes, $190 billion we poured into schools that still nobody has even really accounted for. So no, it's not money. No, it's not the pandemic. It goes way deeper than that. And to all the people that talk about, you know, they have their Black Lives Matter posters everywhere, and they talk about equity nonstop, and they can't shut up about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, right now they have Black students doing worse than they were doing in 1992.
And that needs to turn around. Thank you so much, Erika Sanzi, Defending Education Director of Outreach. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Angela.
Good to see you.